All right, so we are live. I am here with Chris Stevenson, who is a expert in the fitness industry. He is, I would call him more of a customer service just connoisseur. He really has come from owning a business for a gym business for over 20 years, and since then has pivoted into basically founding and owning a full service consultation service for gyms and owners and fitness leaders. And I'm really excited to meet with him today because he's worked with, I met him first at IDEA as an international presenter, and he also presents for conferences like IHRSA and Club Industry. And I'm excited to interview him today about his mindset, his thought, his six-step process on all of the different policies, and some of them very new policies that we are going to have to guide our teams and guide our instructors and trainers in enforcing as we start to become more in person in our fitness experiences after all of this is said and done. So thank you so much, Chris, for being here.
Thanks for having me, Stacy. I appreciate it. Excited to be here.
And so, Chris, really quick, as we both know, enforcing policies in general is not fun.
Yeah, I mean, think about the last time you were trying to get something done at any business that you go to, and they said, "Well, it's our policy," and you were like, "Oh, cool, policy. I get it." Nobody likes the word policy. Generally, it's somebody telling you you can't do something that for whatever reason you want to do, whether it's right or wrong. So it's a challenging situation, and policies always need to be enforced, but more so now. Because like you said, there's a lot of new policies that are going to be developed, and they're all in regards to safety and preventing the spread of COVID and health, peace of mind. So if these types of things aren't enforced, you're going to have a lot of issues at your facilities. And we were talking actually prior to this, but the analogy that we had heard from a colleague was that when a member sees a member violating these policies, especially COVID related, social distance related, cleaning related, if they see one of your team members seeing that and not doing anything, that's kind of like a police officer watching a crime happen and not do anything about it. So it's going to be one of those things that we definitely have to spend time with our staff on training them on the importance of doing so, and really giving them the tools to make sure that they make sure that everything that happens, everything that needs to happen actually happens.
Definitely love it. And I love that analogy because it is so true. And really, I think going into the mindset when you're approaching a member is just how important your role is in maintaining that the club stays safe and stays open. And that's why you're approaching that member. So having that, positive mindset before you go into it. So I would love to hear, I've read it before, but I love your 6-step process. And just, we all know that a process will make us feel more comfortable when we are approaching an uncomfortable situation. So I'd love to have you talk through those 6 steps that you shared.
Okay, yeah, and I think that's important to note that anytime you have a process in place, it does make things easier. And when you introduced me with such a kind, flattering introduction, which I appreciate, talk about my commitment to customer service and studying that and best practices. I always tell people we want to make policy enforcement the best experience it can be. Now, it's not going to be perfect because part of it is telling somebody you can't do what it is that you're doing. But if we can make that a little easier through, again, making it the best possible experience in sort of what they may consider to be a negative situation is important. So the 6 steps, first and foremost, you got to introduce yourself and your role. It might sound simple, but you'd be surprised. I've seen people that have worked for me, people that I've consulted with, you see a staff member go to enforce a policy and they just walk up and say, "Hey, you can't do that. Stop." And they walk away. That's a bad experience for the person and a bad experience for the team member. So letting them know, hey, listen, you want to build a little rapport first. It makes the situation less confrontational. It personalizes it by exchanging names. And then finally, it reminds that person that you are in authority to be doing this in that situation. So walking up saying, "Hey, Stacy," or saying, "Hey, we've never met. My name is Chris. I work at the welcome desk. What was your name?" "Oh, Stacy. So nice to meet you." So that's step one, is that simple introduction. Again, explaining that you're going to build some rapport, you're going to exchange names to make it more personal and friendly, and then you're going to let them know by telling them your role that you are a person of authority. The next step is a good one. It's let them off the hook. Right now, there's a good chance a member knows what they're doing shouldn't be happening. However, the minute you go up and approach them about that, they're going to get defensive and could get confrontational. So always start the conversation after the introduction by saying, "I'm sure you had no idea, but," or you probably weren't aware of that. Now, I guarantee you 95% of the time they are, but you still give them that ability to let them off the hook, and it makes them feel better about this whole situation. Once you let them off the hook, then you're going to say exactly what the policy is, right? So whether it's we don't allow cell phone conversations on the floor, or we do now require that every member, after they're done with a piece of equipment, thoroughly wipe it down with this particular disinfectant near that equipment. So you're going to explain to them exactly what that policy is. Now, just when you simply explain a policy, they still sometimes aren't super fired up about it. That's when you go into the why about the policy, because then you explain that we have this in place for a very good reason. So if we were to say, the reason we don't allow you to use your cell phone on the floor is it often takes away from other members' experience. Or in a COVID-related situation, we might say, the reason we need you to do this is to make sure that we reassure that we don't spread this, and we're concerned about the safety about all of our other members. Now, notice what I did in that particular explanation is I put it on other people. And psychologically, people are willing to take risks with themselves, but when you hit them with it's affecting someone else, they tend to respond more favorably. I can't remember the book that I read it in, but there was a study on a hospital that wanted people to wash their hands more often. And they had 3 soap dispensers set up. One of them had a sign that said, please wash your hands. The next one said, for your own safety, wash your hands. The third one said, for the safety of our patients and your coworkers, please wash your hands. That was the one that went through the most soap. So when we can put it on, you're affecting somebody else in a negative way, psychologically, people tend to respond stronger to that. Then you want to give options. So you're not just taking away, you're going to give something. So back to our phone call analogy, I would say, what you can do, however, is use it to text or listen to music through headphones, or you can step into our welcome area or out back into our outdoor area where you can have any conversation that you want. Now, with COVID related and cleaning and those sort of things, there may not be like options that you can do, but what you can do is more thoroughly explain. So when I say, here's the policy, we do need you to wipe this down with our disinfectant every single time after use. Those can be found here, here, and here for your convenience. And if you have any questions, ask us. So in certain situations, you can't necessarily give an alternative, but at least explain it more thoroughly and how easily this thing can be accomplished, right? So you go through, so it was introduce yourself, let them off the hook, explain the policy, explain the why, and then explain the why. Oh, give alternatives, and then you're going to thank them at the end. And again, just like the intro might seem like common sense, you'd be surprised how often it doesn't happen. So at the end, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. So you know we are grateful, and we know this is a little bit of an inconvenience, even if it's the right thing to do, but you want to make sure that you thank the person for that. So they feel like, well, by me cooperating, it is doing something, and they are grateful and they appreciate it. So those are the 6 steps.
I love it. And really the way you plan out that kind of approach with someone is because I know when I'm approaching someone with a policy, I'm thinking of all the what ifs. What if they say this? What if this happens? What if, the sky falls? And so going in with a plan, going in with exactly how you're going to portray to them the rules and the expectations. And then really there's no room for much error because you're also giving them the how to and the compassion of, oh, you might not have known this. So here you go. And so helping them really accomplish what you're looking for is great.
And what I would recommend too is, and some of this will be a little new, so it'll be about documentation with the COVID related policies that have to be enforced, but you could probably brainstorm the top 6 policy violations that you have. Maybe it's lifting barefoot in the weight room, or somebody being on their phone, or somebody trying to bring a child in who's under the minimum age. You could probably brainstorm the top 6. You can probably guess what some of the COVID related ones will be in the social distancing sort of policies, brainstorm those. But after 2 weeks, you're going to know what the top 6 violations are. And those are the ones you kind of create the scenarios and consistently role play with your team. There's only so many you're going to get. And as long as you role play, you get better at it.
Love it. And actually that brings me to kind of our last point. How would you recommend managers, leaders, owners, gym owners approach this with their team, and how to really motivate them to feel comfortable in accomplishing this?
Well, I think it's almost a similar process. You're going to bring your team in. You're going to let them know we care about you guys. Here's the policies that we have in place, and here's what you got to watch for. Then you give them the steps behind it. What I don't want you to do is just blindly try to make people do things. So I'm going to give you the tools to empower you to do it, but then reinforce that they have the authority to do this. And by not doing it, give them the police officer analogy, right? It's like a police officer watching a crime and doing nothing. But also just reinforce, it's for everybody's safety, including your teams. And the only way that we can be successful with this whole thing is to completely work together. So let them know you're going to empower them. You have their backs. Let them know you're available for questions at all time. And then finally say, we're not going to send you out there blindly. We're going to role play this thing like crazy. Now, the one thing about role playing, and Stacey, you've probably seen this with your staff, and I've seen it even when people bring me in specifically to role play with their teams, they're still like, oh no, role play. I'm like, that's what you're hiring me for, right? Very, very, very few people are like, I can't wait to role play. I mean,
no,
you always have a couple,
I haven't met that person yet.
But the more you do it, the more they get used to it. And again, they'll see when they have to do something in reality for the first time, having role played will have helped. So you just got to reinforce that. I know you might feel a little uncomfortable. We'll do this as much as you need. And if you have any questions, please let us know. And one little side note about the policy enforcement, it's not just to empower people who might be hesitant to enforce a policy. You also have those couple team members who, with best interest at heart, are like, all right, I'm stopping this now. And they run out and they basically berate somebody, make the member feel horrible, cause a conflict, not with bad intentions, just thinking I'm doing the right thing. So those are the people you have to dial back a little and say, let's use this system. And then the people who are hesitant to do it, here's a system for you to do it well.
Yes, love that. And I mean, even when you're rolling through like all the different policies that most gyms have, I immediately start to think, it wouldn't hurt to just recap, what are our policies? And schools are not going to be in session, as we all know, anytime soon. So we are going to run into those childcare issues and those children running around. So so that is eye-opening for me too, for sure.
Yeah. And I think, by the way, one little note on leadership too is people are more engaged when they have fairly immediate feedback. So when you do, I and obviously you can't watch everybody, but I would tell your team, when you find yourself having to go out and do this, as soon as it happens, come see me, because then you can do a little debrief. How did it go? Do we need to role play more? And reinforce, thank you so much. What you did meant something. It meant a bunch of other members around there who might have felt uncomfortable now feel more comfortable. So try to give as much immediate feedback as you can.
Love that, especially positive feedback, because then hopefully it'll be more likely to continue that for sure. Love it. Love it. Thank you so much, Chris, for being here today and providing that knowledge. And where else would you mind sharing with our viewers where else they can find you and Chris Stevenson Consulting?
Sure. The website is www.stevensonempowers.com. You can reach me at chris@stevensonempowers.com. That's STEVENSONEMPOWERS.com. I'm Chris Stevenson on basically all the socials, so please feel free to follow all of those different things. And if you do have any questions, especially in a time like now, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm happy to help anybody that I can. It's a trying time for everybody with a lot of unknowns. So if I can be of service to you, again, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Love it. And I have loved all of your content. Definitely sign up for his newsletter. Every time I get the newsletter, it's the one newsletter that I am like the first one I open. As soon as I see his name, I always get something really, really helpful from him and Marissa. So
thank you.
Appreciate it. All right. Thank you so much again.
Anytime. We'll have to do it again.
All right. Bye.
Bye.